what advice do you have for those first steps towards actually leveraging that warehouse first approach? What advice do you have on things like team structure or computation considerations or tooling investments? Like there's so many of those like first initial decisions that, if you're doing this for the first time, you're likely kind of guessing as you're going here. So would love your advice there.
I maybe hit on team structure first
Okay.
because I think even internally, it's taken a while for us to get to the right way to work with the data team because there
Hmm.
will be a point, and hopefully often, where you have projects that aren't too complex for you to be doing
Yeah.
yourself, right? You're still going to need a very skilled data engineer, very skilled analyst. An example, we have a couple examples that for us is like when we built our internal marketing attribution, when we built our prospecting command center, when we built um, a lot of the stuff for our ABM motion, it was beyond the skill set that I had. And it was like, how do we get these larger, more complicated projects moving along in addition to the smaller stuff that I can do? And those are the ones that I've traditionally had a harder time making progress on because it requires multiple different people from across the org being aligned on pretty meaningful bodies of work that we need them to do. So what we've spun up internally are pods, functional specific pods. We have a marketing pod, a revenue pod, EPD pod. Each one of them has the key constituents of our bigger initiatives. So we have one data engineer, one data analyst, ops support, finance support, and BSC, which is business systems like Salesforce and integration. And we prioritize multiple quarters out those bigger initiatives that we want to do. And we'll say, hey, we're going to be doing measuring expansion this quarter or, preventing spam or regionalized cost allocation, like whatever the projects are that are larger and weedier, getting everyone aligned. Like, yes, these are the right things. These are the people that need to work on it. And this is how we're going to work cross functionally on these bigger things. And that has worked well because the small stuff is super valuable, but often where most of the gains are going to come from are progressing on these larger projects that then
Hmm.
enable you to do these smaller things on your own.
Right.
So maybe you don't have all of that resourcing, but I'll try to work towards something like that where you're not coming out of the blue asking for big things, right?
Hmm.
You are talking on a regular basis and building alignment with people who have shared interest with you. And that's why I think the functional pods are important because it's really tough to prioritize, an EPD ask versus a finance ask versus a marketing ask. Like in those respective functions, people have things that are most important to them. And each function should be able to get the things that are most important to them done without it being compared to the most important thing to another area.
Hmm.
So if it's like, oh, we're just constantly prioritizing
Yeah.
EPD because this is product work and like customer facing stuff, your things may never get done. So having independent ways to make those decisions on what your functional areas priorities are and get them done and have functional expertise, like a data engineer and analyst that specifically work on marketing will be able to work 4 times faster than someone that has to jump across all these other areas. So that to me is one of like the biggest unlocks that we've had is making sure that support system exists in that way so that you don't build all this infrastructure and still not have a way to get decisions done. Like how you make decisions and how you do work are as important as the tech infrastructure that you build.
Hmm.
Um, on the tech side is like if you're just getting started, start with your most important use case that's within reason, right? Like it's easier to apply things when it's not theoretical of like, we could do all of this stuff. It's like, I really need this thing. For us, that was the multi-touch when I found DBT in the first place. It could be anything, right? It could be feeding stuff into AI. You need a clean data set so that you can actually run your AI on it. Whatever it is, like find that one thing that you're like, this use case matches what we're talking about and just focus on knocking that down. Because then once you take something full funnel, you take that data, you drop it in a warehouse, you clean it up, you get an exposure, like then you have it under your belt. Then it's rinse and repeat. So trying to just find that and find best in breed tooling along that because it's really not that complicated to read like 10 posts and realize like what your stack should look like roughly. It's the same 4 tools. Different plug in a different vendor here, but same 4 or 5 tools. Just pick one, get started, test it,
Yeah.
get one win under your belt, and then expand from there.
Awesome advice. Really appreciate that. Yeah. And definitely echo with the instead of spending like a couple of months deciding which vendor to pick, like just try one. Like a lot of them have very approachable price entry points to be able to just like play around and get started and get your hands dirty.